Okay. Good morning. Happy Mother's Day to everyone, all the mothers out there and that. Kind of unusual not to have something special for them at church and that because we can't be there. But I just want to say Happy Mother's Day to all of you and say welcome to Christway Community Church this morning. And we want to continue in our series about fear and how all the things that are going on in our world today has caused so many people to be living in fear of one thing or another, and basically just about everything. With all the unemployment and the way the stock market's gone totally crazy, we have many who are fearful about their finances, and I think that's what I'd like to talk about this morning. See, God has called us to put others first. Put others before ourselves, because that's what Jesus modeled, and that he always put others first before himself. And so I think we need to just start loving our neighbors instead of trying to preserve our earthly riches during this time. And I was trying to think of a good analogy on that, and because our world today and not just today, but throughout history, it just keeps going up and down, up and down. You go up to a real high peak, then you come way down. And it's almost like a roller coaster, isn't it? And I don't know what your feelings are on roller coasters. I've kind of found out that there's two kinds of people when it comes to roller coasters: those who love them and those who hate them and aren't going to get anywhere near one. I remember when our daughter Danielle, the first time she rode a roller coaster, we were at Kings Island in Ohio and she was nervous about riding one. In fact, she didn't want to ride one. And so her and I were standing in line, and she didn't really know what the line went to. And until we got almost up to the top and that where you got on the cars and that. And we had been in line for quite a while, and there was a huge amount of people behind us. There was no way she could go back. And then she found out it was for the roller coaster, and it was the biggest one that they had there at the time. And she was nervous as could be. She was scared while we were in line. And I kept telling her, everything's going to be okay. You try it once. If you don't like it, then you don't have to do it again. But I think you're going to like it. And everything's going to be fine. We won't sit in the front car or the back. We'll sit in one of the middle ones. And it was our turn to get on, and she still wasn't very sure. But we went and got in the middle, one of the middle cars, where it's not quite as scary. And she screamed through the whole ride. But when we got off, at the end of the ride, when we got off, she wanted to go get back in line and get right back on it again. And she's still that way today. The wilder and crazier the roller coaster is, the more she likes it. And what I really want to get at is, it's kind of interesting. I think that something like the roller coaster can be a source of joy for some people. And for others, it's a source of terror. I mean, they're scared to death of it. And yet it's the same thing. How can the same thing be both a thing of joy and a thing of terror? And I think the ones who really enjoy the roller coasters, they trust the roller coaster. They trust the people who are operating it and who made it and that, and they just trust that the ride's going to be safe. And when they get done with the ride and they get off, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. And I think that's kind of the way some of us are when I think about the COVID-19, the virus that's going around right now. When it has to do with our economy and that. And I don't know. I imagine you're like me. We're all pretty much the same. And we have friends and family members who've lost their jobs. and they lost their source of income. And we've all, the whole country has seen unemployment rates like never before. And they're comparing it and saying now it's even, the unemployment figures are even worse than they were in the Great Depression. And I think we have people who are wondering, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How can I get through this? I've been trying to sign up for unemployment and I can't even get through the sign up. And I've been waiting for hours and hours and hours to try to get up. To some of them have to stay up till in the middle of the night to try to get online and get there. And then when they do finally get signed up, we see every day where people are saying that they're waiting weeks and weeks and still haven't gotten any unemployment yet. And some have been getting paid fairly quick, some haven't. And all the while they're wondering, who's going to pay my bills? Who's going to pay my rent? I can't even put food on the table for my kids and my family. What is all this? What does all this mean? It kind of reminds me somewhat of a story back that Jesus told in Luke 12, 16 through 21, where he says, and he told them this parable: the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I'll store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Right there, I'll stop there for a moment. I think there he's saying, hey, I'm trusting in this roller coaster of wealth. I'm trusting in it. But then God comes in and he says, but God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. Wow, he said that rich man, he trusted in the roller coaster of wealth. And God said to him, what? He said, you fool. To my recollection, I think that's the only time God's ever outright called somebody a fool in Scripture. And Jesus, in telling us a story, is saying we shouldn't put our trust in wealth, because wealth is here today and gone tomorrow. It can disappear in a heartbeat. Instead, we should put our trust in doing things towards God, towards God's kingdom, being rich towards God's kingdom. And maybe that's just one of the things that God's trying to tell us right now. He's slowed everything down and brought everything to almost a complete stop. And I think maybe he's reminding us that we need to stop looking at our own wealth and trying to build it up, and to be rich toward him and towards his people, his followers, to be rich towards his kingdom. And even though we don't have a paycheck, we can come in and we don't have a lot of extra money, we can still be rich towards God by simply helping our fellow man, helping our neighbors out. We can pick things up at the store for them, help them get a mask if they can't do it. Just go get their medicine for them if they need to. Take them to the doctor if they need it. We can still do things for them. We can pray for them. If there's something that they need, pray for them. Give them a shoulder to cry on if they need it. There's so many different things we can do. But see, when we put our focus on wealth, we see that we look at wealth as being a means to get great, to be somebody important, to be better than everyone else. It boils down to we all want to be kings of our own little kingdom or queens of our own little kingdom. And we don't want to worship some other king or queen. We want to worship ourselves. We want our own little empire, our own little kingdom. And Jesus, again, it talks about this in Mark 10, verses 42 through 46. He says, Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave to all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many." I think Jesus is being real clear here. That we need to be rich towards God. We need to serve others. We need to quit trying to be first or be number one. And no matter how much you have or don't have, you can always be rich toward God. Jesus and his disciples didn't have anything. I mean, Jesus didn't even have a place to lay his head at night. So you don't have to be rich to give towards God. You can always be rich towards God because you can always do some kind of a good deed. Some kind of good deed for others to serve others. There's always some place that you can serve. Right now, the food banks are overloaded with people coming in, so they could probably use some help handing food out or getting food ready to hand out. Or there's soup kitchens and that you can help out at, and maybe just send someone a text of encouragement. We can't go see everybody, but we can send them a text of encouragement through our phones, or we can do it through messaging on media and stuff, on Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use. You can be there for them. You can talk to them, and you can be a shoulder for them to cry on if that's what they need. And I know you're not supposed to touch people in that, but if they're in the same room or if they're a family member in the same house, sometimes they might just need a good hug or to hold their hand and let them know everything's going to be okay. But even though we can't touch people and do a lot of things, I think we can still find a way to do things for those in need right now. And we just need to ask ourselves, when you get up in an organization, how can I be rich towards God today? And before you go to sleep, just ask him, how was I rich towards God today? There's a story written by the Bishop of Alexandria. I can't pronounce his name to begin with, but this was written back in 260 AD. And during that time, there was a bad plague going on in Rome. And he wrote about the plague that was happening in Rome. And he said, all the pagans were fleeing Rome. They fled Rome. They left those who were sick there to just die. He said, but the Christians, they stayed there in Rome and they took care of the sick and the dying. And he wrote that they exchanged their health and well-being so that they might care for those who were dying, so that they may both be serenely happy. And he said, during this time, the church just exploded. It grew just immensely because people had never never seen anyone love others the way the Christians did back then. And he marveled at how they could love others that way. That take care of people who are dying and sick, taking a chance on getting sick yourself, and some of them dying from that same illness because you were there taking care of others. The pagans and the Romans didn't do that. Only the Christians did that, and the pagans, they marveled at how they could love others that way. See, they realized that they hadn't come to be served, but to serve, just as Jesus did. And isn't that what Jesus said in Matthew 20, verse 28? He said, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. I know it can be challenging right now to think about somebody other than yourself, to love others, especially with all the restrictions we have in that. But you know what? I believe that the Holy Spirit can and will guide us to find a way to serve others, to love others, to care for others, to be rich towards God's kingdom. I believe that God has pushed the pause button, so to speak, on our world today. And I think in doing that, he's calling us back to being the church. And I'm not talking about the church that's kind of developed over the years, revolved over the years, the way we've made it over the years, the way we've changed it over the years. And I'm not saying all the changes are bad, because they're not. A lot of them, most of them are good things, but they're things that God didn't have in the original plan for the church. And I think he's calling us to be the church that he made from the start. And by being the church that he created from the start, we can find ways to be rich towards God. That the Holy Spirit, if we're following him the way we're supposed to, that he'll show us how to be rich towards God. He'll let us know when we need to go get groceries for a neighbor, or how we can pray for someone else. I've heard where people put signs out on their lawn and said, if you need prayer on something, call this number. They put their phone number down there, and people call them, and then they pray for them, so they know how to pray. Or if you need groceries, give me a call. We see things on TV all the time where there was one not a week or so ago where there was a mailman. Or that wasn't a mailman, it was a paper man. He was the guy that delivered the newspapers. He's seen older people and he knew they couldn't get out, so he started leaving them notes in their paper saying, if you need groceries, give me a list and I'll go get it for you. And he had all kinds of people in the town he lived in that he was going and getting groceries for. Or we can gather even online using technology. There's Zoom meetings. There's, like we're doing right now, there's all kinds of different ways that we can talk to each other, and the different apps that we can use to talk to each other. And maybe just when you go to the store, even if somebody doesn't give you a list, if you know you got a neighbor or someone in your family that may be pretty tight and on things and be struggling a little bit, pick up a few extra cans of food, or an extra bag of pasta or something, or a little extra meat or soup or something, and give it to them. We need to love our neighbors as ourselves. Isn't that what Jesus said? And that's what he said in Matthew 22, verses 37 through 40. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. He said, this is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. He said, all the laws and the prophets hang on those two commandments. And, love your neighbor as yourself. Do we do that enough? And I know that you may look at the news, and as you see all those roller coasters that you may have trusted in, whether it's the stock market or your pension or whatever. You see it going up and down, you see it going down, crashing, or you trusted in your job or someone in your family's job or whatever. And so many things in our world today have just left you wanting, haven't it? And what you should do as you look at those things, at those roller coasters, I'm not going to trust in them anymore. I'm going to trust in the God that provides. And God provides for us. And he cares for us, and he cares for those around us. And he wants us to care for those around us. And yeah, it's normal to feel a sense of uncertainty during times like this. We're under lockdown and we can't get close to anybody, social distancing and whatever you want to refer to it as. And yes, like I said, in these kind of circumstances, it can be a challenge just to get through each day. And we talked about last week, try focusing and thinking about godly things and not the fear, not all the stories and the bad news and good news, whatever. Think about godly things and trust in him. But we can't find a way to love our neighbors as ourselves. And I know from personal experience, if you can find a way, if you can find it within yourself to love your neighbor and to do something for your neighbor, to make it easier for them, you know what? It makes it easier for you also. You can get through the day a lot easier. You're not as stressed and worried about what's going on and what's happening to you because you're helping someone else. You're showing God's love to someone else. You're giving and investing in God's kingdom. And yeah, we need to abide by the guidelines. I know there's a lot of people right now who don't want to go by the guidelines the government has set out and that our authorities have set it in place. And God tells us we're supposed to, he put them in authority for a reason, and we're supposed to listen to them and abide by what they say. And so we need to go by the guidelines that are set so we can slow this virus down and maybe put an end to it. But we need to spend time in prayer. Prayer for all the financial implications that this crisis is going to have, not just on ourselves, but on our neighbors, our communities, our states, our country, on the world. Because even if they say tomorrow that we can all go back to doing what we were before, things are not going to be like they used to be. There's a lot of businesses out there that shut down 6, 8, 7 weeks ago that aren't going to be able to open back up. There's people out there who have lost everything. There's people out there who have lost their jobs permanently, not just temporary. We need to reach out to people and find out ways to pray for them. Like I said, if nothing else, put a sign out. Put a post on your social media account saying, hey, if you need something, if you got something I can pray for you about, let me know so I can know how to pray for you. And pray for them, pray for their families during this crisis. I know several families who have lost loved ones during this crisis. One family has lost a husband and a wife and a son during this, all in the same family and within less than a month. Now, I'm asking you today to take a look at your day each day and say, what am I going to do today? During this crisis, see if I can find a way to serve someone else, to help someone else get through this day a little easier. Maybe you can make a list of people who you can serve or who might need help in some way, and then find out what kind of help they need and try to help them. And use everything. Use the internet. Use phone calls, text messages, even send regular letters, through what, snail mail or whatever you want to call it. Send them a little card thinking of you, praying for you. But just be rich towards God's kingdom this week and not your own kingdom. Don't worry about your own kingdom. Worry about being rich towards God's kingdom. And God will take care of your kingdom. There's a song I heard the other day, and it kind of reminds me of some of the things that are going on right now and that are so true right now in our world. The title of the song, you might want to look it up after you get done watching this and that, and you're already on YouTube. You can look it up there. It's called "There Was Jesus," and it's by a gentleman by the name of Zach Williams, and Dolly Parton sing it. And they, in the song, they're singing about when all seems lost and everything's confusing and hopeless and that. If you just look, you can still find Jesus. You realize afterwards that Jesus was there. He was there taking care of you through that time, walking you through those fires, walking you through those storms. See, he's always near you. Even if you can't feel him or see him, he is always there. And he's always in total control. He's in total control of everything that's going on in your life and in my life. So when things seem out of control and hopeless to me and to us, we need to look to Jesus, because he's the one that has complete control of everything. He's the one that's in control. And this week I just ask you to get into your Bibles and look for Jesus and be rich towards God's kingdom. Help others. Pray for others. Don't worry about your own wealth, your own well-being. Worry about doing something for God's kingdom. Be rich towards God. And you know what? He'll take care of everything else for us. He takes care of the flowers in the fields, the lilies of the valley, and everything else, all the birds, all the animals. And we're worth a lot more than they are to God, because he sent his son to die for us, so we could be reconciled with him. So he cares a lot more for us than he does all these other creatures and flowers and things like that. And he takes care of them, so he's going to take care of us. It may not be the way we want it to be or we think he should, but he's taking care of us the best way because he knows the whole picture. He knows what we really need, not what we want, but what we need. And he'll give us what we need. So reach out and touch somebody this week. Let them know that you love them. Let them know that God loves them. And we'll see you again next week. You have a blessed day. And again, mothers, be good. Have a great day. Continue being the great moms that you've always been. And we're going to keep lifting you up in prayer that the Lord will take care of you and help you to continue to be the best mom you can. We love you, and we'll see you next week.